The battlefield was quiet now. Smoke rose from broken machines. The red sand was full of blood, pieces of armor, and empty weapons. The war had moved on, but not everyone had left. A small alien girl lay on the ground. Her silver uniform was torn, her arms shaking. Dirt covered her purple skin. Her eyes, wide and scared, stared at the sky. Her name was Kayla. She had no strength left to cry. Not long ago, her own people had been here. Alien soldiers, her team, her commanders. They had looked at her once, then turned away. One shouted, "She's useless now," another said, "No time, leave her." She heard their boots running away. Kayla tried to speak. "Wait. Please, ... But only a dry cough came out. They didn't stop. They didn't care. She was not a soldier. She only gave medicine and helped the wounded. But now she was the wounded. And they left her behind. Her body was cold, even under the heat. Her legs didn't move. Maybe they were broken. She didn't know. She only knew one thing, she was going to die. Alone, far away, a human soldier was walking through the field. His name was Ray Carter. He moved slowly, checking for enemies. His gun was ready, but what he found was not a threat. His eyes locked on a small figure lying between two broken alien tanks. It wasn't a warrior. It was a girl. He walked closer, step by step, unsure. Maybe it was a trap. Maybe it was already a body. But when he saw her chest rise and fall just a little, his breath caught in his throat. She was alive. Ray looked around. No other aliens, no sounds, just the wind and smoke. He knelt beside her. Her face was dirty, but not ugly. Her hair was thick and dark blue, full of dust. Her lips were cracked. Her eyes barely opened. One eye looked up at him and didn't blink. "Can you hear me?" Ray asked, his voice low. The girl's lips moved. No words came out. Ray looked at her broken legs. Bones didn't look right. She had lost blood. Maybe too much. He should have left her. He had orders. Any alien left behind was considered dangerous. They might explode, carry poison, or be spies. But this was just a girl. Left behind like trash. Ray touched her shoulder. She flinched in fear. Her body shook. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. Still, no words. Only pain in her eyes. Ray's radio cracked. "Unit 7, report. Do you see any alien life signs?" He didn't answer right away. His heart beat faster. "Unit 7. Respond." Ray looked at the girl. Her eyes were closing again. He pressed the button. Nothing here, just scrap metal. Moving on. Ray didn't know what he was doing. Maybe he was making the biggest mistake of his life. But something deep inside him said, "This isn't right." He dropped his gun and pulled off his backpack. Carefully, he took out a thin blanket and wrapped it around her. She didn't fight. She COULDN single quotes T. Then he did something crazy. He picked her up. Her body was light, like paper. Her skin was cold against his. She made a small sound, like a whimper. Her head rested against his chest. Ray looked back once. Then he walked through the smoke, through the broken machines, through danger. 30 minutes later, he reached the small camp. His tent was on the far end, near the rocks. No one saw him as he slipped inside. He laid her gently on a soft mat. Her eyes opened for a moment. "Why?" she whispered. He was shocked. Her voice was soft, weak, but in perfect English. Ray knelt beside her. "Because no one should be left like that," he said. Her eyes filled with tears, but they didn't fall. Then she passed out. Ray sat down next to her, heart pounding. He didn't understand everything. He didn't know who she was or why she was left behind. But one thing was clear. He had saved an alien girl, and if anyone found out, he might not live to regret it. The tent was silent. Only the sound of slow breathing filled the space. Ray sat on the cold ground, staring at the alien girl sleeping under his blanket. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from what he had just done. He had broken the rules, helped the enemy, brought her inside a human military zone, and yet, looking at her now, she didn't seem like the enemy at all. She looked like a child lost in a storm. Suddenly, the girl's body twitched. She let out a sharp breath and sat up. Eyes wide with panic, her hands searched for something to defend herself, but found only air. She froze when she saw Ray sitting across from her. Her lips trembled. Her voice was hoarse. "Where am I?" Ray raised both hands, calm and slow. "You're safe," he said. "This is my tent." She blinked. Her eyes darted around the small space walls made of rough cloth, a tiny lamp, a can of water, and him. "Only him. Are you going to sell me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ray's jaw tightened. "No," he said quickly. "I'm not like that." She didn't believe him. It was clear in her eyes. He pushed the water can toward her. She didn't move. "Go on," he said. "It's clean." After a long pause, she reached out with shaky fingers and drank. Her hands were so thin they looked like bird bones. "What's your name?" Ray asked gently. She looked at him, suspicious, but then said quietly, "Kayla." Ray nodded. "I'm Ray." They sat in silence for a few minutes. She tried to move her legs but cried out in pain. Ray rushed to her side. "Careful. Your legs. I can't feel them," she said, her voice breaking. "I think they're broken." Ray gently pulled the blanket off and looked. Her legs were swollen, and one ankle bent the wrong way. He frowned. "You need real help. But if I take you to the med tent, they'll know what you are." Kayla looked at him again. "So you'll leave me too?" Her words hit like a knife. Ray remembered her lying in the dust, alone, abandoned by her own people. "No," he said firmly. "I won't." Later that night, Ray stepped outside to get some medicine from a hidden supply kit he kept for emergencies. But the moment he opened the tent flap, a sharp voice called out, "Hey, who are you talking to in there?" Ray turned. A soldier stood nearby, arms crossed, eyes full of suspicion. I was talking to myself," Ray said quickly. "Bad dreams." The soldier raised an eyebrow. "Right. Well, Command's calling for a full check tomorrow. They think some aliens might still be hiding nearby." Ray nodded, hiding the fear rising in his chest. "Got it." Back inside the tent, Kayla was sitting up, eyes alert. "You're hiding me," she said softly. Ray sat beside her. "Yes, for now." "Why?" Ray took a deep breath. He didn't know how to explain it. Not fully, but something about her. Her eyes, her fear, her being left behind, it reminded him of his own past. "My sister," he finally said. "She died in a raid. No one helped her." Kayla looked at him for a long time. Then, for the first time, she didn't look afraid. "I won't be trouble," she said. "I just don't want to die." Ray smiled faintly. "Then don't. You're not going to die here." But deep down, he knew the real problem wasn't just keeping her alive, it was keeping her a secret. And secrets never stay hidden for long. The voice on the loudspeaker echoed across the camp like a hammer striking steel. "Attention all units, new orders from command. All alien survivors must be found and executed, no exceptions. This is a cleanup operation now." Ray froze. He was standing outside the mess tent, holding a metal tray of food. But he didn't feel hungry anymore. His heart began to pound inside his own tent. Kayla was waiting. Wounded, alien, a direct target, and now a death sentence. The soldier next to him laughed. "Guess they finally got tired of playing nice with these freaks." Ray said nothing. Another soldier added, "You hear what happened last night? One of them tried to sneak into a human tent. Got shot in the back." Ray gripped the edge of the tray until his knuckles turned white. "They don't see them as people. not even as prisoners. Just things to erase. He turned and walked away fast. When he entered his tent, Kayla was sitting up, eyes wide. "I heard it," she whispered. "The voice." Ray nodded, setting the food down beside her. Her hands shook. "They're going to kill me." He knelt down, looked her in the eyes. "Not if I can help it. But if they find me here, they'll kill you too." Ray didn't answer right away. He had already thought about that 100 times, but something inside him said this was bigger than orders. Bigger than war. "I've already made my choice," he said. That night Ray couldn't sleep. Kayla had finally closed her eyes, her breathing soft and even. But Ray sat awake, staring at the ceiling of the tent, listening to every noise outside. Boots walking, weapons being checked, soldiers laughing and drinking. And then a shadow passed by his tent. It paused. Ray held his breath. The flap moved slightly, as if someone was about to peek inside. But then the shadow moved on. He exhaled slowly. Too close. The next morning, Ray was called to the command tent. His chest felt heavy as he entered. The commander, a tall woman with hard eyes, stood over a map. "We've received reports that one alien might have escaped the battlefield," she said, without looking up. "We believe it's hiding in this zone." She pointed right where Ray's tent was located. "Sir?" Ray said, trying to sound surprised. The commander finally looked at him. "If you see anything, you report it, understand?" Ray nodded slowly. "Don't make the mistake of thinking they're just scared kids," she added. "Aliens don't feel the same. They only pretend, and they kill better than us." Ray clenched his jaw. "Yes, ma'am." But in his heart, he knew she was wrong. Kayla wasn't pretending. She was scared. She was in pain. And she was real. Back at the tent, Kayla was awake, eating the bread he left her. She looked up when he entered, eyes full of worry. "What happened?" Ray knelt beside her. "They're searching this area. You have to stay quiet. No sounds, not even a whisper." She nodded quickly. Ray leaned close. "And if anything goes wrong, if someone comes in, I'll take the blame." Kayla looked at him in shock. "Why would you do that?" He smiled weakly. "Because you're the first person I've met in this war who made me feel human again." But even as he spoke those words, Ray didn't know that someone was already watching. A tiny recon drone hovered silently outside his tent, its red light blinking as it recorded everything. Someone had sent it, and someone was about to learn his secret. The wind howled across the night. Camp. Ray woke up with a strange feeling in his chest, like something was missing. The blanket beside him was empty. The small mat where Kayla had been sleeping was cold. He sat up fast, heart racing. "Kayla?" No answer. He rushed to the tent flap and threw it open. Cold air hit his face. The stars above were bright, but the ground below was shadows and silence. She was gone. Ray didn't wait. He grabbed his jacket and ran out into the cold. Each step felt like thunder in the quiet night. He searched behind rocks, checked under supply crates, past tents filled with sleeping soldiers. Nothing. Then he saw small prints in the dirt, bare feet dragging weakly through the sand, leading away from camp, toward the hills. Ray followed them without thinking. Kayla was barely standing. Her legs were still broken, barely wrapped with cloth, but she used a long stick as a crutch. Her breaths came out in short gasps, her skin turning pale blue from the cold. She didn't hear Ray coming. When he saw her silhouette under the moonlight, his voice broke through the wind. "Kayla, stop!" She froze, then turned around slowly. "I'm sorry," she said. Her voice was weak but clear. "I couldn't stay. I didn't want you to die because of me." Ray stared at her in disbelief. "You'll walk in with broken legs and freezing cold, just to protect me?" Kayla looked down. "They already killed my people. I didn't want them to take you too." Ray walked forward and threw his jacket around her shoulders. Then, without asking, he picked her up in both arms. She didn't resist. Back at the tent, Ray wrapped her in a thermal blanket and gave her warm water. Kael, a single quotes, as hands shook badly. Her lips were blue, but she was still alive. "Don't ever do that again," Ray said, his voice low but full of feeling. "If you disappear again, I don't think I can survive that." Kayla looked up at him. "You're not like the others." Ray shook his head. "No, and you're not what they say either." She rested her head against the soft blanket and spoke softly. "My parents, they worked in science, not war. But when the war came, they had to choose sides. And they chose peace. That made them enemies." Ray listened closely. "They tried to stop the war. So the generals punished them, took them away. Said I was useless without them. And left you behind," Ray finished. Kayla nodded, eyes closing again. "They left me to die like garbage." Ray gently touched her hand. "Not anymore." But outside the tent, under a thin cover of rock and ice, the small drone from before had landed silently. Its data chip was full, and someone far away was already reviewing every image, every word, every face, especially hers. The storm hit just before dawn. Not a storm of wind, but of silence. Ray woke to the strange feeling again, that something was wrong. Kayla was still there, wrapped in blankets, breathing slowly. But her face was tense, her brow furrowed in. A dream she couldn't escape. Then she whispered something, a word in a language he didn't understand. He sat up. "Kayla?" She didn't answer. Her eyes stayed shut, her lips moving fast, speaking more alien words. Almost like a code. Ray reached for his wrist device and hit the record button. Later, when Kayla was resting again, Ray stepped outside the tent. The sky was still dark. He walked to a hidden corner of the camp and opened his portable translator. He played back the words. She spoke in her sleep. The screen flashed. Subject identified: Kayla Savannah, daughter of Dr. Velen Savannah, chief xenogeneticist of the Alliance. Status: classified level red. Asset marked for capture or termination. Warning: highly protected genetic prototype. May possess forbidden data. Ray stared at the screen, stunned. Daughter of a top scientist? A prototype? Forbidden data? He whispered to himself. "What are you?" Back inside the tent, Kayla slowly opened her eyes. Ray looked at her differently now. Not with fear, but with a heavy question behind his eyes. "Kayla, who are you really?" She flinched. "I told you. My parents were scientists." "But you didn't say they were the most wanted scientists in the galaxy," he said quietly. "You didn't say you were designed." Her breath caught in her throat. "You listened to me in my sleep?" "I had to. I needed to know the truth." Kayla sat up slowly, her voice shaking. "Yes, I was created in a lab, not as a weapon. My parents wanted peace between species. They made me to bridge DNA, to be living proof that different races could survive together." Ray stared at her. "You're a hybrid?" She nodded. "Part of me is alien, but part of me. Comey's from humans." Ray stepped back, stunned. Kayla's voice was quiet now. "They tried to hide it. The general said I was unnatural, a mistake. They destroyed the lab and took my parents. I only survived because a guard helped me escape." She looked away. "But then even he was killed." Ray sat down, heart pounding. He had thought she was just a left-behind girl. But now, she was something the entire galaxy wanted to erase. Or control. Outside, the wind had stopped. But inside the camp, a new storm was rising. A high-ranking officer was reviewing the drone footage in secret. He leaned close to the screen, freezing on Kayla's face. "Contact command," he said coldly. "We found her." Back in the tent, Kayla looked at Ray with tired eyes. "You want me to leave now, don't you?" Ray looked at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "No, I want to help you disappear. For good. Her eyes filled with tears. Why? She whispered. He smiled. Because you're not a mistake. You're proof we can be better. But neither of them knew. The net was already closing in. The knock on Ray's tent came just after sunset. 3 sharp taps. Too clean. Too controlled. Ray's eyes opened. He reached for his sidearm, heart thudding. He looked at Kayla, who was resting quietly, wrapped in blankets. Then the voice came from outside, calm, friendly. Ray, it's Marcus. You awake, Marcus? A soldier Ray had served with for years. A friend. Ray opened the flap. Marcus stood there smiling. We've got hot coffee. Thought you'd want a break. Ray hesitated, but nodded. Yeah, sure. He stepped outside and zipped the tent behind him. 10 minutes later, Ray returned. The coffee was bitter, but not as bitter as what he saw next. His tent was open. The blankets were thrown aside. Kayla was gone. Ray's blood ran cold. He dropped the cup and ran outside, yelling, Kayla. But he already knew. They had taken her. In a dark corner of the camp, Kayla sat in a cage barely large enough to stretch her legs. A bright light burned her eyes. Soldiers surrounded her, whispering, She's the one, the half-blood. She doesn't look dangerous. Shut up. Command wants her alive for now. Kayla didn't cry. She just stared at the dirt beneath her feet. She knew this would happen. She had felt it in her bones. Someone betrayed them. Ray was dragged to the command tent an hour later, hands tied behind his back. His face was bleeding. He'd tried to fight, but they outnumbered him. The commander stood there with cold eyes and a quiet smile. You hid an alien from us. One of the most valuable targets in this war, Ray growled. She's not a target. She's a person. The commander ignored him. She's a weapon. And now she's ours. Ray struggled against the rope. Where is she? A new voice entered the room. Marcus. He looked at Ray with a sad expression. You should have told me, brother. We could have shared the credit. Ray froze. You set me up? Marcus shrugged. They made an offer. Rank, money, freedom. I took it. Ray's voice broke. You sold her. She's not one of us, Marcus said coldly. You forgot that. Meanwhile, in the cage, Kayla whispered something under her breath. A soft hum began to rise from her body, energy moving in her veins. Slow but steady. Her eyes glowed faintly. No one noticed. Not yet. Back in the command tent, the commander smiled. You'll be tried for treason, Ray. Or maybe we'll just say you died in the crossfire. Easier. Ray spat blood on the ground. You're making a mistake. The commander leaned in close. No, you did, when you decided to care. But outside, a storm was coming. Not one of wind or rain, but of power. Kayla was no longer weak, and she wasn't going to be their prisoner much longer. The cage door wasn't made to hold something like her. Kayla sat in silence, her hands resting on her knees, her eyes closed. But inside her body, something had awakened, something never meant to be used. The voices of the guards faded. Their laughter blurred into noise. Her heart slowed. And then it began, a pulse. Not from outside, from within. Her skin shimmered. Faint blue light danced across her arms, her spine, her fingers. Her breath became warm again. Her body no longer felt broken. Kayla stood. And the cage door melted. Alarms screamed. Red lights flashed across the base. Soldiers ran in every direction, confused and shouting. Ray, still tied up in the corner of the command tent, lifted his head when he felt it, a deep vibration in the ground, like thunder rising from beneath his feet. Then he saw her. Kayla walked into the tent, her eyes glowing faint blue, her steps steady, her wounds completely healed. The commander froze. What are you? Kayla's voice was calm. The one you abandoned. Then she raised her hand, and with a flick of her fingers, every weapon in the room snapped in half like twigs. Ray looked at her in awe. She didn't look angry. She looked in control. Kayla walked over and knelt beside him, gently breaking his ropes with a touch. Ray whispered, "Kayla, what are you doing?" She looked into his eyes. "Making a choice." They stepped out together. Soldiers surrounded them, weapons raised. But none dared shoot. Kayla raised her voice. "You call me a weapon, a mistake, a threat." She pointed at Ray, "But he called me something else." Ray stood beside her, proud. "She's a person," he said, "and she's not alone anymore." The commander tried one last order, "Take her down." But the soldiers didn't move. One by one, they lowered their weapons. They had seen enough. What stood before them was not a monster. It was hope. Hours later, Kayla and Ray stood outside the camp. The wind had changed. Ray looked at her. "What will you do now?" She smiled softly. "I think I want to build something. A home, maybe even a future. With humans, with anyone who doesn't leave others behind." Ray nodded. "Then let's start walking." They turned away from the war, from the pain, from the orders that nearly destroyed them both. And for the first time since the beginning, Kayla was free.